As a war artist, my abiding interest is in the human face of conflict, conflict's long-term consequences and immediate implications. Nowhere is this more in evidence than with the current refugee crisis, the biggest humanitarian crisis the world has seen since the Second World War. Suspended behind me is an iteration of a much larger installation that I did, premiering in St James's Piccadilly in 2017. That was in itself the second in a series of work that seeks to highlight the plight of refugees today. My first was called Flight. It was a boat that 62 refugees had been found drifting in the Aegean. They all would have drowned had the Aegean Coast Guard not rescued them. Following on from Flight, however, I felt 2 years later that the crisis had actually deepened, had worsened, and yet had fallen from the media spotlight. So I wanted to make an installation that would reflect where refugees are today. They are, like these clothes, stranded, stuck, suspended between a past to which they cannot return and a future to which they are often denied forward movement. You will see that I've lit this installation by a central orb. As it brightens, it represents the light of hope by which a refugee travels, and most importantly, the light within ourselves that will validate their hope. As it dims right down, which it did in St James's Piccadilly and Canterbury Cathedral and Leicester Cathedral, it serves to remind us of the darkness in which we leave our fellow human beings should we ignore that plight.
We're the founders of the Hope Project. The Hope Project, our focus is on dignity, empowerment, assisting refugees through art and compassion and empowering them to be human.
In 2015, the amount of clothes left on the beaches was incredible. 600,000 people came on the north coast of Lesbos, and a lot of these clothes by Arabella here came off the north coast of Lesbos.
Hope is such a small word, but I believe it's actually where the beauty of being human resides. We are the only creatures who hope. One of the small boys that I picked out of the water when I was working in Lesbos in 2015 in desperate circumstances was about the same age as my son. He had been separated from his father. It's a tactic that the traffickers often use, is to separate families. He was freezing cold, he'd nearly drowned, and he was terrified. By dint of an amazing miracle, I actually managed not only to get him dry and warm, but reunite him with his father, who had come on a different boat about half an hour later. And once their reunion was over, it was very, very tearful, very emotional. His father gave him a tiny little child's rucksack, and he dug in it, and he pulled out this. And I turned to his father and I said, "Why is he giving me this?" And his father said to me, "He has taken it from his room in Aleppo to give to the first person in Europe who welcomed him as a thank you." Can you imagine what I felt when I had to turn away in impotent shame and tears and rage because I did not feel worthy of that thanks? But tonight, I think this is our opportunity to make ourselves worthy of that thanks. So I ask you all not to forget the refugees, to dig deep into your pockets tonight and go and spread the word about loving your neighbour. Thank you very much.